It's the end of the year, and I made it my New Year's resolution to read every single Webtoon original series that came out in 2024. And New Year's resolution achieved! Probably. I made this a few days before New Year's ends, but if I don't read the last 4 or 3 series, I mean, that's on me. Now, I've been talking unscripted about all these series that came out this year, and I have plans to make a tier list of all of them soon, which is more than 300 of them now. But right now, I just wanted to run through some of my personal favorite series that came out in 2024. And what better place to begin than the start? That's right, the first series of the year was the 3rd season of my all-time personal favorite Webtoon original series, Hardcore Leveling Warrior Earth Game. So, just to avoid confusion about this topic, Hardcore Leveling Warrior and Hardcore Leveling Warrior Earth Game are the same series and continuity, except Hardcore Leveling Warrior, the series, has 2 seasons in it, and then the series ended and then went on Daily Pass. Season 1 was Lucid Adventure, and Season 2 was Sleepwalker. So to avoid, I guess, a headache, they made Season 3 Earth Game a brand new series. So all other series that came out in 2024, pack it up, you'll never beat my personal favorite Webtoon. And while that is a joke, I'll say Earth Game has been my favorite season of Hardcore Leveling Warrior so far. All the characters we know and love are back, powers are cooler, people deviate from their path in fun and interesting ways. It's honestly a really cool way to continue the series, being fully aware of the fact that it's also its biggest problem. It's season 3 of a series with over 300 episodes, to which you only get to read 15 of them for free whenever, and you get 1 episode a day, which will take you about a year to get through unless you want to watch 20 ads a day. And I'll say this, I don't hate Daily Pass as a consumer, but as a content creator, it does suck that I can't show past episode 14. But as a consumer, it does feel like a decent way to beat binge fatigue, binging something and hating it because you consume it all at once. But it's more of a problem here because if you want to read what I think is the best season of Hardcore Leveling Warrior, Season 3, you have to either go into a blind and hope it just pieces itself together, which it won't, I won't spoil it, but there's some fast pass stuff that is briefly explained but was a vital part of Season 1, or just take a while to read the entire series before moving on to this one, which I think is a fair criticism. But that doesn't stop me from loving it, so let's move on! One of the more recent series, it came out like last week or 2 weeks ago, is Writer's Legacy. It's hard to recommend series that came out like in the past few months, like November and December, because they're just so new, there's not a lot to chew on. But oh my goodness, does Writer's Legacy sell itself hard on its premise, and does it work? The general idea is that this is a modern fantasy where storytellers gain strength and magical power from people consuming and reading their work, getting so strong that they can even summon things from their stories, like Alice in Wonderland, chess knights or minions or whatever. We follow a distant and off-branch descendant of Victor Hugo, a writer who wrote plays, poems, books like Les Miserables, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and The Man Who Laughs. Now, while writing this, there isn't a lot out, so it sells itself hard on being a meta story about storytelling, cliches, and so forth. And it wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was working, at least even slightly. Man, I hate sports, but like randomly, Webtoon will hit me with like the best series I've ever read, and it'll be a sports Webtoon. Overtime Elite, which is a different series that came out this year, is rocking pretty hard, but I wanted to look at Skool of Street. Following an idol stan who moved to a new school, got dumped, and accidentally befriended his favorite idol's little sister, helping her get over her stage fright and learning how to dance as well. There's a reason I think Skool of Street is so high up on my list, and it's because of its character. It oozes character. From the art, the story, the dances, and yes, of course, the characters themselves all feel so bright and vibrant and alive. I've said it before, and I'll say it a million times before someone takes me out, characters are the most important part of your story. The reason so many people try to chase the greatest estate developer Lloyd Frontera character is because they've seen people fall in love with the series despite it being in a generally overused and disliked trope. Skool of Street may not capture that same level, but it does so many things with so many different characters, it's genuinely pretty impressive. But speaking of isekais, this might be a spoiler for when I make my tier list, but I guess this entire video is kind of a spoiler for when I make my tier list. But Nebula's Civilization is the best isekai that came out in 2024, period. No joke, no bit, no cutaway to a Family Guy moment. It is the best isekai of 2024, and it does so by barely being an isekai. The general idea is that we follow the best player of an online strategy game where you're like the god of a civilization and to build up the civilization to stop and fight other players. He and many other people from the beta were isekai'd into the game, given divinities, and must lead their nation to be the one true god of the world. What this means is that our isekai'd main character is someone we honestly get maybe at most like once an episode. Instead, the focus is on the group of creatures he's the god of, the black scale lizard men. And honestly, the main character of the series is not our god, but the priest. Look, oh my goodness, how do I say this name? That guy. And what's interesting is that our isekai god can really only control bugs that help kinda guide his worshippers, but not really directly influence the story. It's such a solid way of creating a super strong and smart isekai main character without making it a boring plot device, which honestly is sick. Personally, I think a lot of the series I picked up were fantasy or action, but most were probably romance, and I can live with that. Romance is just so often pretty good, but like, not anything past that. Like, don't get me wrong, Spell for a Smith, KO, Angel of Death, Seasons of Lovesome, Heartacres, I do love them all, but they all kind of fail to get on the same level as the series from before. It's why I think This Wasn't the Plan is a really cool take on romance and on regressions. We follow an overworked manager of an actor. This dude sucks! Makes her do random and tedious stuff, basically works her to death, or technically in front of Truckun, which is when she's sent back in time to get her revenge, as she becomes his manager right at the start of his career instead of years later and tries her hardest to sabotage it, but accidentally pushes him to become even more and more popular, as he's actually not the same person he was years later. As she continues to be his manager, she sees all the reasons why he was once a terrible person, all the things that broke a starry-eyed and naive kid into a jaded and distrusting jerk. Regression series, except for one that came out recently, and I'm the Queen of This Life if you squint really hard at it, almost never redeem their abuser. Never give any reasoning or understanding further than jerks will be jerks. And I think that's understandable. People like seeing revenge get taken. But the series focusing on redemption instead of revenge creates a really engaging and memorable experience. Speaking of, I noticed that out of all the, when recording this, 90 series that are in the romance tag alone, outside of BLs and split main character roles where both the female and male lead are given generally the same amount of time, a good 5 series have a male main character as its focus. This isn't such a big problem, mainly because action and fantasy usually have a male main character and usually have that main character get the girl or often a harem anyways, but it's interesting that there aren't that many of them. And I think the same thing can be said the other way around. There aren't a lot of fantasy action series with a female main character, which is why I popped off over Peace Restaurant. It's a reverse isekai, as fantasy creatures and such overlap into our world, yada yada yada. The main premise is that the strongest person in the world is our female main character, the chef of Peace Restaurants. It's a series that doesn't take itself all too seriously, as world-ending threats appear and get bonked on the head and then either become a meal or start working at a restaurant. I just like strong female leads, sue me. Man, forget isekais, forget reverse isekais, modern fantasy, or whatever else. Sometimes you don't need tropes or cliches to do the job. Forged in Flames the Peacemaker is exactly that. This series is pure hard fantasy. Dragons, knights, magic, witches, abilities, and cool powers. It's all great and feels weirdly unburdened. Like, yeah, you could compare it to other things, but it kind of just does its own thing. We follow the Red Chili Peppers, I think that's what they're called, with a wind mage, the himbo who uses the power of friendship but in a cool way, a shadow, a dragon who promises never to use his flames to hurt others, and our scrappy newbie who wants to be the next peacemaker, someone who uses magic stones to help others. It's fantasy, it's fun, and it's so pretty. Man, horror is such a miss for me. I don't care about horror at all. I have like 5 or 6 horror series that I do actually enjoy. I don't know why I do or don't, I'll be honest. And the horror I do like outside of Webtoon original series is always because of the mystery instead of anything else. But man, Memorial tops whatever horror list I had. It's basically a Webtoon mascot horror series, as the world nearly ends due to a meteorite leaking toxic gas into the atmosphere. However, the Memorial Core creates a chip to be implanted in people's necks so they wouldn't die, and creates friendly, not at all Fazbear-looking creatures to help take care of any problems that arise. Honestly, I think the thing I dislike the most is that the best scares are behind a daily pass and I can't show any of them. But man, does this series create an unnerving world. You can't trust anything, not the world, not the Memorial Core, not your friends, not your family, not even your own memories. It does such an amazing job of creating such a dreadful world that you can never trust what's behind the next corner, as our main character loses memory of a girl he thought he liked his entire childhood, but she didn't actually even exist, as he discovers the mystery of Memorial Core and how it's taking down people and erasing them from existence. And there's so much more that came out in 2024. I should know, I have a spreadsheet after all. So leave your favorite 2024 series in the comments below. And to know where it lands, make sure you catch my tier list ranking all 300 series that'll come out eventually. Why did I sign up for this? This is a terrible idea. I tried to make a tier list like 2 years ago. It took 3 hours for 100 series. This is gonna take like a 9-hour thing. Oh God. Anyways, make sure you stick around for whenever that comes around. And here's to the new year. Take care.